Thank you everyone for joining our talk today with Mirembe and Ben about our new art exchange moving image program. It's new for us, not new for Ben, but very excited to be partners in this. Some of you may already be familiar with us at ASAP, but I'm just going to do a little short intro to what Art South Asia Project is, if you're not already. So Art South Asia Project, ASAP, is a UK-based arts education and development nonprofit. We support and create partnerships with institutions and professionals working within the field of South Asian modern contemporary visual and applied arts in Bangladesh, India, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, and its UK diaspora. Those of you who are not familiar with Lux will be helpful to have a little introduction as well. So Lux is an arts organization that supports and promotes visual artists working with the moving image. Founded as a charity in 2002, it builds on the work of its predecessor organizations, the London Filmmakers Cooperative, London Video Arts, and the Lux Centre, and a history which stretches back to the 1960s. So unlike ASAP, Lux has been around for a long, long time. I'm going to intro Ben and Mirembe now. So Mirembe is a cultural worker whose interdisciplinary curatorial practice attends to literary and visual cultures through a Black studies lens. They have recently curated Njabala, an elegy, an exhibition on grief. Their writing has been published in Art Forum, African Arguments, Literary Hub, Johannesburg Review of Books, African Feminism, and others. And Mirembe is a current participant in the Sub-Saharan Africa Art Exchange Program. And we're also delighted to have Benjamin Cook. So Ben is the founder director of Lux and Lux Scotland. He has been professionally involved in the independent film and visual arts sector in the UK for the past 25 years as a curator, archivist, producer, writer, and lecturer. I'll let Ben and Mirembe talk a bit more about Art Exchange, but I'll quickly say what it is for those who are not already familiar. Art Exchange moving image, is a cross-cultural curatorial professional development and exhibition program for early to mid-career visual arts curators from Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, taking place from 2023 to 2025. The program supports curators selected from open calls to work with and respond to moving image works from the British Council Visual Arts Collection. So we're going to talk with a few questions that I'm going to ask Ben and Mirembe, and then we're going to open up to the floor for questions from all of you who might be potential applicants. So firstly, Ben, how did this program come about and how did you identify the needs for Art Exchange Moving Image?
Thank you so much, Marla. Thanks for the nice introduction as well. So let me think, how did this come about? So Lux's work involves a lot of it, kind of international exchange. One of the main things we do is we promote UK artists overseas in terms of circulating works and creating exhibition opportunities and other kinds of curatorial exchanges. And as part of that, we had often worked with the British Council, which has a kind of a similar remit in some ways. Then during the pandemic, actually, we did a first kind of pilot project in Western Balkan countries with British Council, and it was kind of a collaborative project to work with British Council collection, of which they have a huge collection, and some moving image works in that collection, and the Lux's collection, which is just moving image works and sort of much bigger than the British Council in terms of those moving image works. So we worked with 6 countries at that time to develop projects utilizing those works, and it was a really kind of rich experience. And one of the things that was really amazing about it was the spending time together with different curators and all of the kind of exchange and conversations that came out and around that kind of experience. And in a way, like all of these projects, you know, I always think about, from my position as running an arts organization, how these things change us as well. And that's what I'm always interested in as well. Like, how do we develop new networks? How do we bring new voices into our work? How do we get new perspectives? How do we widen our horizons? And then, and basically that project went really well, and British Council were very happy with it. And they invited us to develop a new project focused on their collection, initially in sub-Saharan African countries, which is what we've been doing in the last year, and we're still working with Mirembe and other curators there. And there was always the idea that there would be a second iteration in South Asia, which is what we're talking about today. And just a couple of other things. Obviously, partly it is about kind of animating and utilizing the British Council collection, but it's also about the possibilities of working with moving image work. What does that mean? Obviously, it moves very fast. It's very kind of flexible in the way that it can show. It's very contemporary, I think, in terms of what it raises in terms of thinking about art making, exhibiting art circulation, and things like that. So it seemed like a good opportunity to do that, to think about that, to extend new networks. And I think one of the aspirations, like I said earlier, is also to use this as a kind of catalytic process to develop new networks, and not just networks between the UK and the countries we're working with, but between the countries and curators that are involved in this program. And our aspiration is also to create connections between the curators in sub-Saharan African countries and the curators in South Asian countries as well. Whew, that's quite a lot.
Amazing. I can probably give you a little bit of a break, or maybe you could, if you don't mind, going on to just explain a little bit more about the British Council Visual Arts collection and how the program relates to it, and then I'm going to move on to Mirembe, so you don't have to.
Yeah, absolutely. So the British Council have a huge art collection, and it was always kind of conceived, I think, as a kind of a loan collection. It's like an international kind of loan collection that would pop up in different places around the world, and it also kind of populates various British Council offices and things like that, and other kind of government buildings. And it's interesting. It's very eccentric. It's quite eccentric, the collection, as a lot of these collections are, because it's they're collected works under lots of different kind of ideas over the years. So I think it's quite interesting in that way. With this project, we're specifically focused on the moving image works, which isn't a huge amount of work. Actually, it's I think it's like 70 or 80 works. Again, it's works by UK artists, or an artist based in the UK. Again, collected under different kind of rationales and things like that. So again, it has a kind of some eccentricity, which is interesting, I guess, in terms of all collections. Like I said, the British Council are interested in this idea of finding ways to invite people to engage with this collection. I think this is the thing always with collections. They come alive. They come alive, obviously, when they meet the world, but they also come alive in terms of when people look at them and think through them. So that's one of these ideas as well. And I suppose one of the things that maybe Mirembe can talk about as well is there's not one way to do that either, I think, and that's definitely something that we've kind of come up with in terms of our experience so far. There's lots of kind of there's lots of positions that you can take in relation to this, so in some ways you could think of the collection also as a kind of as a kind of catalytic field in some ways, a catalytic field for thinking, so the project is very much not just like select works from the British Council collection to show in your country, but how can you respond to that? How can you think through those, and take a different kinds of position in relation to that?
Thank you. And I've been lucky to see some of the works in the collection, and it'll be exciting for potential successful applicants to be able to delve into that as well. I wanted to, before we find out how Mirembe and the cohort kind of engaged with this in a different way and alternate ways, as you mentioned, Ben, it would be really helpful, I think, for our audiences, Mirembe, to know what was your experience of applying, like, and what drew you to the program, and what were the tips you could give to our potential applicants?
Okay, I think for me, the thing that drew me to the program was the idea of working with a collection, because the British Council website, I think, gives you a sense of what is in the collection, and you can also see from the LACS website what is in the LACS collection as well. And there's a lot. There's so much in both those collections. So the idea of working with those collections was exciting for me, and that's what drew me in. But also, I think something that I was thinking about was other curators who are coming on board for this program who are in Africa and working in different contexts that I'm interested in meeting and thinking with, in sharing this experience with, and that has, been true. So I'd say, to apply, you'd have to kind of go through the LACS collection, British Council website, and get a sense of what that is and what you could be interested in. If anything resonates, if anything sparks some interest, if an artist you're curious about is in the collection, or an idea, I guess, something that you could work with, something that speaks to your curatorial practice, I think. So because I also thought about how do I relate this to my curatorial practice and my context where I am. And so I think not to get overwhelmed with like coming up with an idea for what you will do, but just a prompt of how you could relate what you see, with that, just what you get a sense of, how you could relate that to your curatorial practice. I assume that's what you are looking for, or at least, that is what I applied with.
Amazing, thanks. Definitely, having worked with the LACS collection, can agree with the vastness of it. It's very exciting, and finding that needle in the haystack that interests you is crucial. And maybe on the other side, Ben, what were you looking for when you were looking at the applications? I know you got amazing ones for SSA, and what would be your tips on, I mean, we're both going to be reading them, but on writing an application that's gonna attract us?
I guess what we were looking for is really some inspiring ideas around the kind of the ways of working, and around those kind of ideas and strategies. And I mean, in some ways, one thing that I should say is that in some way, when you make this application with this proposal, obviously you haven't seen these works. So in some ways, you're modeling something here. It might not be the final idea, and so we understand that. So in a way, what we're looking for is ways of thinking and ways of working with artworks and engagement with moving image more generally. So I think that's one thing that's really important for everybody to know, that we're really looking for a kind of modeling of an idea somehow, rather than and a ways of working. So in a way, you're demonstrating something. You're demonstrating your thinking and your strategies, rather than, we're not necessarily choosing ideas, we're choosing curators.
Mm.
And very much the process of the project will be working with the participants to develop those ideas in response to the British Council collection things.
Thank you. So on that point, really, you're working with the ideas and the curators. What were both of your experiences of the program so far? Like, how how have you found it, and what, for example, coming to London with the highlights would be great for you, but to share a little bit more of that.
I can go fast.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we are six curators. Six? Yeah, we're six curators, and we're all coming from different parts of the continent, from West Africa, from East Africa, from Southern Africa. And so everyone has come to the program with very different perspectives, very different ideas, very different ways of working. And this program for us, I think, started in October 2023. So we've been meeting once a month since then. And the meetings have been for us to share ideas about the collection, to share ideas about moving image, about exhibition making, about curatorial practice, about the proposals that we are developing. So it's been a lot of peer support, obviously with Ben as well. We've had readings, we've had films shared, we've had people sharing about their practice. So for me, this experience has been very supportive. As a curator, you kind of need that space where you can share ideas and get feedback on them. So we've had that space, but also just to pick apart this collection, the British Council collection, we've had time to go through it, and we've each of us to say what we are thinking about wet films, and very different feelings and ideas and thoughts have come up, and those have been very interesting discussions. And I think the time in London was amazing because from October we were meeting online. And so we got this time in December where we were together and we saw exhibitions together, which I think is a very intimate thing to do together as people who make exhibitions. Met also so many curators and artists. And one of the artists that we met, Laria Champong, will be doing workshops in Uganda and Kenya and Tanzania. And this happened during the trip in London. We met him and we were just like, we love your work. It's incredible. His work is part of the collection as well. And we're just like, okay, let's organize some workshops for artists in East Africa. And he was like, I love it. Let's do it. So we're doing it. But also this coming together is also what has enabled this collaboration, because you come to the program and you're expected to come up with an exhibition proposal for sure. But how we have decided to collaborate with each other, to come up with ideas together, I think that has happened because of the time we have spent together, because of the ideas that we have shared, and how open we have been to each other's thinking. So essentially, with my project, I'm now collaborating with two other curators that are part of the program. And I think that wouldn't have happened if we did not spend that time together. And also one last thing about being in London is, I think you can say that the collection is huge and you can get a sense of it online, but actually seeing it in person, it's huge. There's so much. There is so much to the collection that being able to see it physically is just mind-blowing.
I think we've lost.
Yeah.
What exhibitions were you able to see and artists, for example?
I think one of the exhibitions that we saw was A World in Common, which was a photography exhibition at Tate Modern. We met Laria Champong, but we also met quite a number of artists and curators and people who are generally working in the industry at the Africa Center. British Council and Lux organized this networking dinner and invited lots of people who are amazing. I think one of the people that I met at that event was Rachela Marie Brown, who is actually an American artist doing a residency at the Royal College, the Royal Arts College. And, you know, her work is incredible. It's amazing. Yeah, but there was just so much to see, actually. And it was great. It was lovely.
Sounds super rich, and hopefully we can build something as equally rich for this cohort as well. Ben, you obviously were there with everyone. How was the experience for you so far?
It was really amazing. It was actually really wonderful spending the week with everybody. It was a really beautiful experience, actually, just having that intense time. I feel like it wouldn't have really mattered what we did. It was more like the time together was so important. And there were many. Yeah, we had some experiences together. We went to Margate when it was freezing cold in December. We went to Turner Contemporary, and we met with Mark Leckie, who was doing a project there then, and we had a funny tour around the town, and it was freezing cold by the sea. So we can definitely promise another out of town trip as well to some other place. We're not just going to stay in London for the next with the next cohort. And yeah, it was wonderful, and it culminated at an organisation called Innova, which is a very important organisation, very kind of one that we've worked with a lot over the years. And so it had this. We did lots of different things with the Barbican. We were at the BFI, Tate, all of these sort of places, and big and small places. It was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot, and it was in December. It was freezing cold.
Hopefully we'll be a little bit warmer.
Yeah.
This October.
I should say as well, I feel like I've neglected to say that our partner is Guest Artist Studios as well, and they've worked very hard on the project as well. I feel like I'm taking all the credit for this, but they've been involved in the project as well, as our partners.
Thank you. I don't want you to give everything away. I'm not asking you to do that, Mirembe. I know you're in the midst of working on your project at the moment. But you mentioned you're going to be working with Larry for a Chimpong for workshops. Could you give us a little bit about your proposal and where you are with your exhibition, so that our audiences can know what to expect if they were at this side of the table in a way?
Well, the proposal comes, you develop it during and, possibly after your application. But our exhibition, which we are really looking forward to, I must mention that, like I said, I'm collaborating with 2 other curators who are part of the program. And Rosie Olang, the curator from Nairobi, Kenya, and I decided to work on an exhibition proposal together. So our working title currently is In Transit Under Another Sky, and we're thinking of movement as affect. We took the provocation to think about moving image, the idea of a moving image quite literally. So, think about a willingness to move or be moved by images. And our exhibition program is actually going to physically move between Nairobi and Kampala, and we're moving between spaces in Kampala and moving between spaces in Nairobi as well. So we're working with some artists in Kampala, some artists in Nairobi, and we're also working with some artists from Tanzania as well as work from the collection. So, we're thinking about what it takes to be moved, to feel moved by these images.
It sounds so exciting. And it's great that this collaboration came out of that group and that group sharing moment, and hopefully these collaborations between all of you will continue long beyond this program, and then hopefully with the South Asia curators who will be selected for our upcoming program. We have one question already in the chat, which I know that we've all been speaking, but might be a helpful question for everyone to think about. But how can an emerging curator ensure a strong application? Big question.
Shall I try and answer that? So I think what we're looking for is something. I guess we're looking for good ideas. I mean, that's quite a subjective thing, you know, something that's kind of something that's quite kind of inspiring in terms of like a way of kind of thinking and a kind of, you know, a conceptually strong idea. But also I think what's really important is a sense of what's realizable as well. So a kind of good sense, I guess we're looking for a kind of sense of like how you would achieve that, how you would kind of configure that as well, and how you kind of think about what you're communicating to your audience as well. So I think that's important. And I think the other aspect of this is about working with a named venue as well. So it also encourages you to think about how you kind of describe how you arrived at that place that you want to work with, thinking about the kind of context of that place, their audience and things like that as well. So like I said before, you know, it's very much kind of modeling those things rather than us choosing those projects. Really kind of interested to see how you think and whether something is, you can think in ways that are realizable as well. Like this.
No, that's really helpful. And I mean, it's on the link, but when you do apply, you will need a letter of support from that institution that you select to work with in your country. So make sure to get that way ahead of time if you need to fit the deadline, because we all know we move at different paces in different places. We have a couple of other questions. So a similar question, but can experienced visual artists who are looking to venture into curation, despite lacking experience in it, apply if they exhibited in galleries and have years of experience in moving image?
That's a good question. And I'm not sure what the answer is to that. Marla, do you have a
I think we should welcome application, but I think you will have to have some kind of a curatorial proven experience. I don't know what you think, Ben.
Yeah,
I think
I mean, I think that's what we ask. I can't quite remember the criteria at the moment, but there's quite a kind of there is a kind of a sort of description of the kind of criteria, and yeah, I think everybody should apply, but just speak to that criteria. You know, try and articulate. You know, even if it's kind of comparable experience, try and speak to that in your application.
exactly. And I think we understand that, I mean, having worked with South Asia for a little bit, that people's titles and the artist curator kind of label can be kind of fluctuating between those two kind of roles. So if what you've done as an artist can be demonstrable to actually work on an exhibition of this format and a project in that way, then do go for it. But do take a look at our website to properly have a look at those criteria as well. I hope that's helpful. Someone has asked also, when we talk about the theme, what are the themes that were mentioned on the website? So the themes about, I'm guessing this is about the British Council collection and the Luxon.
Yeah, so the British Council always has a kind of set of themes that are in the kind of criteria again. So to be honest with you, they're very broad themes. So I would encourage everybody to look at those and try and find a kind of position in relation to those. I mean, try and, you know, maybe they're useful as well as a kind of guide to help you to kind of think and kind of orientate yourself. But all of the British Council work is always kind of guided by they have kind of big kind of international themes in terms of ideas that they're exploring, and they're very broad things like the environment, for example. So I think there's enough of them. I think they cover a lot of potential interest.
So we, as Ben's kind of said, that as long as they're good ideas, there's always room, or what, as you say, subjectively good ideas. We've got an interesting question of, when we say a final exhibition, are we considering it in a traditional format, or could it be, for example, a curated book? Is this something we would consider?
That's another good question. I mean, I think to be honest with you, they are looking. I think the British Council is looking for some traditional exhibition format, but that's not to say there can't be a book as well. There could definitely be other aspects, and I know Mirembe is working in different forms in terms of, and some of the other curators are working with different kinds of things as well. But I think the British Council are quite wedded to at least having some kind of exhibition format within that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Were any of the current proposals included a publication as well, or?
Currently, I'm working on a publication as part of the exhibition that I'm working on.
Yeah.
But also, I think what the other curators are doing is part of what we were doing while discussing the collection. Also, is discussing what does an exhibition look like. You know, really pushing the idea of what is exhibition making. And I think in what is coming out is, yes, we are having exhibitions, but you can tell that because of this thinking, because of this questioning, you know, there's ways to do it that can accommodate the ways that you're pushing those boundaries.
Yeah. I remember when working with Ben for the first time, moving beyond the frame. So I guess rethinking these kind of labels, but obviously as the British Council would like to be sharing the collection in spaces in South Asia, some kind of physical exhibition would be necessary. We have an interesting question, which is a good point, and I'm not sure what the current cohort's experience with moving image was, but what tips do we have for an emerging curator who has curated group exhibitions but not specific to moving image? Ben?
I would just think around. I would think about this. You know, in some ways, that's one of the kind of questions I think of the project is, you know, thinking around curatorship in relation to moving image. So that is definitely part of the kind of process of this project. I would just encourage you to think through, like, phenomenologically in some ways, to think about the experience of those. What have you noticed when you've seen these works showing before? What does it feel like? What works? What doesn't work? How are things? There's a lot of very badly presented moving image works, I think. So it's quite easy to find bad examples, and it's quite hard to find good examples, I think. You know, I'm interested in this idea that, you know, moving image is relatively new in the art space. I mean, it's only been around for 100 years, which sounds like 100 odd years, but, you know, in art terms, that's been around. You know, other objects have been around for thousands of years. So it's very much still kind of emergent in that kind of space. And I always think about gallery spaces as, especially more traditional spaces, as configured around the display of objects. You know, they're very spatially orientated rather than temporal spaces, and there's always some kind of perversity, isn't there? Some of these galleries, the light has been very carefully thought through suddenly like black out everything and create kind of dark spaces in these kind of spaces seems kind of weird as well. So, you know, I think we acknowledge that there's some contestation around this, that it's still very much a work in progress, curatorship in this area, but that's what we would encourage, like lean into that and think, you know, try and think radically about that as well. You know, that could be something really attractive. You know, and this project should be a space to do that, to really kind of think through these kind of questions.
And especially,
can I add something?
oh yeah, please go.
Okay, just add that also the curators who are part of the project are also, they also have very varied backgrounds. There's a curator who's been making festivals. There's a curator who's been working with sound, and there's curators, I think only 2 curators have been so specifically working with moving image. I think everyone has a kind of different background, and I think, as Ben was saying, it's the ideas that you bring to the work really that matter.
Thank you. I've got an influx of questions. For some reason, they're all coming to me. But I'll go through a few of them, and we'll try and finish in about 5 to 10 minutes. But someone has asked 2 really good questions. But one is, they just finished their masters in arts and cultural leadership, and they wanted to start their career in curatorship. Would this be a good opportunity for them to engage in? I do think you need a little, depends if you have done curatorial work as part of your masters, or have proven experience of putting on exhibitions or curatorial projects as part of that. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, again, look at the criteria. You can speak, you know, if you can come up, if you can think of analogies in terms of those things as well. You know, there is kind of comparable experience, I know, in things. And so, but yeah, there is some kind of guidelines there. I mean, again, I'd like to encourage everybody as much as possible to apply, but speak to the criteria.
100%. There's also a question about visual artists who've been curating community projects. They be able to develop the exhibition in collaboration with the communities, even if they're not curators, but they're artists who've been curating.
Again, I mean, I think working with community is really interesting. But look at the kind of selection criteria again. But yeah, absolutely, like working with communities is really super interesting as a kind of strategy and as a way of working.
So that is a yes, but also check the criteria. As a question that I'm not going to ask a couple of the other questions because I think they're very similar. You do not strictly have to engage with the British Council on Lux Collection. You can work with artists' work from your own country as well. That's right. So just to clarify, you need to engage with the British Council collection, but you're not limited to the British Council collection. Yeah. But if we had a project question about something that's not part of the British Council, it would have to engage in some way with the British Council collection, as long as your project relates to.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
And sorry, Ben.
Yeah, just to reiterate my point at the beginning, that one of the criteria for this, in terms of the British Council that are basically supporting this project, is to encourage engagement with the British Council collection and to basically show it more. So, you know, so that is one of the important things for them.
We had a bit of a provocative question on that front, why do we want to work with the British Council collection as opposed to working with artists in our country? It's an interesting question.
I mean, the simple answer to it is that you know, the British Council are sort of paying for it, and that's what they want. But you know, in some ways, that's the power, that's the kind of parameter of this project. But I think maybe Mirembe can speak to this as well, that there is, I mean, we've talked about it a lot, and you know, in some ways with lots of projects like this, there is often something, isn't there? You know, there's some. Now, hopefully, it can be a creative challenge, you know. And my experience of the British Council is they're very receptive to different kinds of thinking and to questions and thinking through these. So I hope it's something that we can think through creatively together. It's not, you know, and British Council aren't interested in just forcing people to do something they don't want. So you know, there's a way through it, but it is something about it. It is about an engagement, and it is about a negotiation in some ways. But my experience is they're very willing to think through these things with people.
And I will say it's a really great collection. It's fascinating to go through, and I know that, for example, Mirembe and you're working with Larry Champong, and if you are interested in South Asian diaspora, there is Hiten Patel's work in there, and there's some really brilliant kind of works in there that is exciting to engage with. And I think the idea is to really create that curiosity and engagement around the collection. So it's part of the proposal, and we're obviously really interested in everyone bringing in artists from their home countries as well. And I think the dialogue between will produce something really, really fruitful. And don't worry, you didn't offend us in the question. It's a good question. I'll move on from that. But if someone is employed in a commercial gallery, are they okay to apply? But they will not propose to the gallery as an exhibition space. It would just, does it matter about their current employment?
No, it doesn't matter at all. That's absolutely fine.
Great. Amazing. All right. Well, I don't know if either of you have any more points you want to say about the amazing program you've been working on so far, or any more points of encouragement for future applicants.
I think I'll just end it with don't overthink it. Just relate your curatorial practice to the collection in some way as a prompt to make the application, and you know, the finer details of what the exhibition looks like, you will have a lot of time to develop that. Now you just kind of need to be interested in something, or just feel that your curatorial practice aligns in some way with this project. Don't think too much about it. Just speak to that part.
100%. Thank you. Ben, is there anything final you wanted to add, or any words of encouragement?
Yeah, just please apply. I think it's going to be a really fun program, and I think we're planning to bring people here to London in October, aren't we? Around Freeze Art Fair time. So there's going to be a lot happening around that time. There'll be a lot to do, and it's been a really wonderful experience. You know, the first time around. So you know, I'm sure it will be again.
100%. We look forward to receiving everyone's applications, and we're always here for questions. Well, Mirembe doesn't have to be, but Ben and I, and if you contact the email address on the website or contact us at info@southasiaproject.org, we can answer your questions that you have for applying, and this will also be available on our website for anyone who missed the talk. Thank you so much to Mirembe and Ben for your time and sharing your generous insights about the program. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. We look forward to receiving all your applications. And thank you, and good evening and good afternoon to everyone. Bye-bye.